Look to the west.
The gunslinger heard the words and opened his eyes. Brown eyes, dilating in the dust, squinting in the sun.
What do you see?
Asked the voice. Everything, thought Josh. The saber-toothed mountains with their white snow peaks, the fossilized rim trail of the Grand Gorge, the long shadows of the Letchworth Buttes. Twin crescent moons floating toward the Erie Basin. Utah Davis and Gardner Dawkins went back and forth, pointing out each landmark to this old man they'd come upon in the stream. Josh didn't talk or turn to them. He breathed in a deep collection of warm autumn smells. Everything. The great Buffalo Nation. The Bills trio may be 2 days' ride from New Fort York, on a present-day trek to go back in time, but they were still surrounded by the spoils of a world rich with water and dignity. Everything framed him. A wanderer, a gunslinger in a poncho. Home, said Josh, turning to face the old man and the river.
Very well,
said the elder.
Home, yar home, ma home, our home.
He was a bit of a mystery, with his back turned this whole time, working a fish trap. He wore a native Glengarry cap of red velvet and intricate beadwork of a bison. Without turning his head, he asked the trio,
Tell me, do you see any ditches, haetoas, or a trench?
No, sir, said Dawkins.
A wall, perhaps, Hardcover.
Utah Davis looked out to see what he could mean. Nothing but the staggering scale of nature. Perhaps no man-made interference at all. No wall. Josh wondered how this sachem knew to call them gardeners and spy guards and...
Yes. How about a standing army of gunslinger knights?
No, said Josh. No need to look. The hunched elder stopped winding the trap and slowly rose to stand straight in the stream. He moved up. His leaves fell down. Water splashed and gurgled as high as his knees, but he didn't budge in the rush.
Ideas.
The elder in the red cap turned around. Utah Davis caught his breath. Ideas, all right. It was the legendary Sachem Reed of the Deer Clan, a hero of the Battle of Comeback. He'd turned the tide of bloodshed with 3 critical strikes embedded within enemy lines. Reed counted coup on more enemies in his offensive than all but one agent in the entire multiverse. And he spoke.
Our world is too mighty for walls. Our minds too expansive for patrol. You defend a frontier, not a castle. A culture, not a law. Ideas are our defense.
Like stories? Ideas of who we are? Or stories of what we'll do? Asked Dawkins and Davis.
It is not an army's arrows, but her stories that fly as far as the winds and hold heavier than mountains,
said Sachem Reed.
Hear me. A story is the gravity of a mind. It holds every decision in place.
He pointed high up to the pines.
It is the idea that falling from a redwood would break our skulls that keep us off her branches, not the sharpness of her needles. And on the undefendable frontier, the storyline is the borderline.
Why do you grant us this wisdom, Sachem? Asked Josh, the Yas of Allentown. Orators of this caliber do not speak on accident. Nor do they trap walleye at midday when the fish are at their deepest. Something wasn't right. Sachem Reed had scouted them.
When Ya looked to the west, you could not see everything.
In a sudden flash, Reed cut the surface of the water. A samurai twist. Exploding waterflecks still fell as his trap lifted. 4 fish bounced inside.
Another story moves.
The bills hurdled mossy logs, forded a tributary, and slid down a sandstone chute. They left a conifer forest onto an expansive prairie. The red cap of Reed moved faster. The red cap of a super spy of the Hero Wars in 4 super collapses. What's this about us being in a fairy tale? Josh heard a memory of his mother from his childhood. Just try to keep up, Josh thought. With all due belief, honey, if the story you speak of is the war chiefs beyond the borderlands, we know of them, said Dawkins as they slowed.
Is it so?
Davis added, our Mafia is well poised to intercept them if they take a single step onto our land. I won't allow it, growled Josh. Dawkins checked the tattoo markings on his chest to confirm. They've only crossed our border once in 8 years. So that's how he knows his dates so well, thought Josh.
Even more then. This must be added to your report,
said Sachem Reed. What report is that? Asked Josh.
You just said it. You are an advanced scout to confront the rampant war chiefs.
We are not, unfortunately. But we will bring any message you wish to General Bean and McDermott. Sachem stopped completely in the tall grass.
The smitten war chiefs' militia openly challenge your power, and you walk west for another reason. What could be more?
A blacksmith, said Dawkins. One whom you...
Of course I know the blacksmith. The only one worth knowing, at least in his prime.
We are tracking a band of petty thieves who are likely trying to find him, maybe even harm him, for a gun to attack the Buffalo Nation, said Josh. And Dawkins added quickly, I believe I found a way back. In time.
Impossible.
Sachem walked away.
Keep up. I need you to see something.
They turned up a knoll, scaring a flock of wild chickens. Dawkins jogged up to his elder. Sir, I think I have a way.
No. The rivers of time do not flow backward, even if weeks allow us to leap into parallel rivers.
I need to know what year you last took up arms with the blacksmith.
You are serious? You think you found a waterfall, flowing uphill?
I might, said Dawkins, but it would mean crossing Chief Kingdom, undetected.
No, quiet this!
The Sachem held up a hand. You are wise, I need your counsel.
Silence!
Barked Reed.
If you have an advantage, it is yours. Don't give it away to the winds.
We trust you, said Utah Davis. Josh looked carefully at the Sachem's reaction.
You don't know who is listening.
We admire your vigilance, Elder. The war chiefs are formidable, said Josh. Yet even they would never risk riding 5 days into our nation. Not with our Mafia so dominant. Sachem Reed slapped Josh, then held his mouth shut. He leaned into his ear.
Silence, gunslinger.
Then a smell slapped Josh harder, as thick as vomit in the air. Filthy flies landed on his cheek, and the sound of vultures. The others already saw it from over the knoll, stunned. They removed their hats as Josh crested the hill. The gunslinger fired his rifle into the air to terrify the scavengers as soon as he saw it, then didn't stop. Until the Sachem buried Josh's hot rifle into the earth.
Enough!
6 vultures dropped from the sky.
Horses! Get right! Our brother Ojedoge are not our enemy.
Get off me! Josh snapped back. What did I just say to him? Josh thought. I've lost it. As other birds squawked away, it was clear to see the corpses of the bison. Mutilated. There were 3 total, mangled in a horror which will not be described.
War chiefs.
suddenly in the narrative. Josh noticed the calves too, confused when their mothers didn't move on with the herd, why they didn't wake up to nudges, till they succumbed without milk. Back to back to back, circling the wagons to the end. Josh apologized to Sachem Reed and left his gun on the field as he walked away to punch at the earth and his flashbacks of last winter. Evil memories of Philly's body boiled out of the earth as he tried to pack them back into the nightmare. She wanted to run and fetch apples and gallop through the rain and live. She was trapped in the borderland, or, if they had expanded, Chief's kingdom.
What happened in Kansas?
The Sachem asked. Josh opened a bloody fist. He held it. The dead man's coin. With sweat and reverence, they buried the physical remains of their fallen brother and sister Bison. The bills of the past and present moved wild bandit flower to the cairn. Orange, purple, white, and stone. After speaking to the Great Spirit, they made their way from the rock pile and onto the Sachem's trail.
Some stories hold heavier than mountains. Hayasa.
Sachem Reed held out the stock of Josh's old rifle.
The story that I see now is that the war chiefs are here, and they are your equal in every way. Each wasted carcass had a number carved into her hide as she fought.
Yeah, those carvings, what numbers? Asked Davis. Years, answered Dawkins.
1870, 1871, 1872.
Said Reed. The killer is marking our battles, Dawkins said. Our losses, said Josh. By sundown, they crossed a series of bridges, causeways, and winding footpaths of a glen to a place that Reed called
my home.
It was a wonderland of geysers in the forest. Fountains, rainbow baths, and dwellings carved into the trunks of redwood trees. Water burst from a chimney. Reed tossed the Bills a handful of glass goggles for their visit.
Just mind the pressure vents and the weak mineral surfaces, and also anything colorful or bubbling.
Which was all of it. They let the horses graze, including Ron's Pinto, as Reed drove long skewers through the fish for roasting. What a sight.
And sound,
said Reed as he waited for a geyser to sneeze before him before continuing to walk.
Or it will be. Every day I rig more instruments to the pipes of these waterworks. It is a giant Wurlitzer, and the biggest hot springs in the west. Fandemonium geyser.
Reed dragged the fish skewers through a yellow slop of foam in a crater, then slid them in a dust of glittering red crystal.
All these little vents and chimes are burps compared to the seismic event of Fandemonium. She burst in 1838, 1,000 feet in the sky. Fountains lasted at various heights for 5 years before the Great Drought.
Reed dipped the disgusting fish in a pool of boiling paste, which hardened before it could drip off, and it smelled like sulfur.
Here's the kicker. Pandemonium may erupt again tonight, higher than ever before. Or it may be dormant forever, and all of these instruments and temples of music were just a hobby of an old Hokwe.
Reed climbed with their dinner up a series of obese mounds of orange minerals, as if stone had been made from bubbles, and said,
Back off some. About 300 feet.
Reed tightened his goggles and lowered a bronze shield between his body and this miniature volcano hole. Only 4 tiny fish, coated in toxic mineral crust, poked out from the blast zone. Dawkins screamed like a prairie dog when it burst. 2 tons of boiling chemistry erupted in 2 short seconds. Poison rain dropped in a waterfall. Sizzling on the skewers were 4 crackling, plump, seasoned and skinned fillets on a stick.
Now that's how you squish fish.
Sachem Reed served them on tin plates next to a glowing steam vent.
A lot of chefs in Allentown will cut corners on the toxins, fearing their stoves won't eviscerate the poison. You're too young to remember the Love Canal Saloon,
Reed ranted.
I get it, they're busy, and it's a wing town. But out here, when the dignity is this rich, there is nothing better than fish squished right.
He tossed a cinnamon stick and 2 apples into the thermal vent they soaked their feet in at the table. Hail Mary, this is delicious. Stupid question. This isn't dolphin, right?
No. Our dolphin sisters are mammals,
Explained Reed.
We just interchanged them because in my era, at Miami Municipal, if all of their fins were sick or floating, they'd just throw in a sturgeon, but keep all the labels the same. Too high on their horse to care, I reckon.
Or too high on dignity, grumbled Utah.
Or dignity.
Agreed Reed.
They had plenty to go around then.
Well, they have dolphins now, said Josh. Calves. They can still see their mothers free in the river below their aquarium. We actually tried to outrun time, said Dawkins.
But sometimes fire brings pain,
said the sachem, cutting into another mouth-watering bite, glancing into the eyes of Josh. Brown eyes, dilating.
And believe me, I know a thing or 4 about coming close.
You mean the Hero Wars? Josh asked.
Of course. The post-weeks. The Battle of Comeback, one of them. Great powers of the super-collapse in you. We changed history, but not dignity. Enough willpower to lift a geyser. Enough sweat, blood, and tears to carve a canyon. We became a mythology. That still wasn't enough.
A deep rumble shook the forest. The nation remembered. How do you do it? Josh asked.
I am no god, hey Awak. Simply do good, and don't ever give up.
No, said Josh, not how do you win a losing battle, but literally, how do you create the post-weeks? Is it a physical place? Is it a supernatural relic like the Youngling song goes?
Are you serious?
The sachem searched Josh's eyes and the others for a hidden joke.
But you have been. Did you not know? Do you not know what happened in Kansas?
Brown eyes, dilating and squinting, expressed everything. They were as absorbent as peat moss.
Of course,
whispered the elder. He had fought in as many super collapses as they had full seasons.
Dignity is the universal alloy of the universe. Our ancestors called it the song, because it is invisible, yet it can be added to anything to enrich it. That could be water, fuel, pacifier chips, drugs, any known element. Sound good?
Yes.
It exists in a constant state of slow, gradual contraction over the course of a year. And instant explosion. So, for half the year, it is so microscopic we can hardly detect it. Every cell in the multiverse with an equal share. But it is already contracting in every body, in bird and matchstick and moon. 2 becomes 4, becomes 16 until it reaches critical mass, and the weakening season begins. The weeks bridge the realms and ages that happen to share a wall of the multiverse at any given moment, or at least every 7 days. It's where the ancients got the word for weeks.
Everybody knows that, said Dawkins. I didn't know that, said Utah Davis. Oh.
The weakening allows dignity to move between the ages, sometimes traded, often raided. These bridges are hard to predict from year to year, but medicine men do find patterns, and they are widely reported when possible.
Yes, but what about the post-weeks? Asked Josh. So the sachem added a crystal to the bowl at their feet, and he stirred it until the steaming water thickened into slush. He was freezing it.
Dignity consolidates greatly over the 17 weeks. Its heat removed from the atmosphere, and the ice of winter descends. Most dignity is seeded into tangible elements by this point, which can be easily quantified. Because of this change, the bubbling cosmos can be forecast by the Raja's law of dignity. The realm with the lowest dignity seeds collides into the realm with the most dignity seeds.
Why is this? Asked Josh.
Well, it seeks the path of least resistance to consolidate. Let me explain.
The sachem had made snow in the thermal bowl. He made a large snowball and one the size of his thumb. Reed combined the two snowballs with a clump.
Dignity doesn't care which realm takes it, strong or weak, as long as it consolidates its density.
Reed scooped another snowball to mash into the first,
And consolidates,
many became 4,
and consolidates,
snowballs doubled,
and consolidates. Until all the dignity of the multiverse, across any age, is terrifically dense in only 2 realms. They buzz with so much energy. A full block of Allentown was built in each thrilling week. Animals flock, landmarks crack from the plates of the earth. All dignity is one fragile weakening away from its paramount consolidation. Time breaks, collision. And in only 3 hours, dignity saturates every cell into colors and power beyond belief. 2 halves of everything in the cosmos collapse around you in a spectacular new star at the center of the multiverse.
Geysers popped like champagne around them. A super collapse.
The super collapse, said Reed. Living mythology, tighter and tighter until singularity. Bang! It explodes again into unknown infinity. Two of those carvings in the bison carcasses were markers of the post-weeks.
Yeah, said Josh. The losses. I didn't know there was a name for it, but I could feel a shock after. An absence, bigger, far more than a normal misadventure.
Losing dignity in the post-weeks is absolute. You felt its enrichment vanish from every cell of every organism in the entire realm at once. It's the cosmos discard you as irrelevant.
Man, Dawkins let out a curse. And the Wichita, who had already felt the glory, paraded away down the warpath. Twice, said Josh.
This cycle, the war chiefs of the West are your equals in every way.
As they were last year. Last winter, said Josh. Equal plus a dead man's flip, said Dawkins.
Meet them,
said Sachem Reed.
Meet them, Bills of the great Buffalo Nation. Confront their story with your own, or else watch the borderlands erode up to your door.
We can't, Utah Davis put in.
You must.
Why?
Because the war chiefs don't make films to tell their story.
The sachem threw the teeth of the bison mothers on the table. They bounced like dice. It is too early in our growing season to risk losing the pepper crops, tablewood, and Kimmewick wheat in total war, to say nothing of our stores of dignity, said Dawkins. And we don't have the authority to start a war, supported Davis, thinking of the generals. Josh watched the teeth bounce, also thinking of the generals. What if it isn't a war? Asked Josh. Arrowhead Rock is our path anyway if we're to jump time in the gardener's plan. I say, Instead of hiding in hooded disguises, we step openly into the heart of Arrowhead. We demand the war game stop now because we set the terms of Dominion. We do. The three of us against their entire military arsenal, asked Dawkins. Not even. Josh still sat. Only me. Dawkins tossed his hat. You know they have exiled chiefs from every age and fighting tactic, added Davis. Mm-hmm. Only me and the Mohawk. A duel. For everything. Dawkins smashed the table an inch from Josh's finger. Stone ledges collapsed, gravel splintered. This was no mere Mafia folk. Josh looked at him. I saved you from Arrowhead once, and that's okay. It's my only job in life is to guard you. And I would give anything, any hill, any battle, any kill. I would give my last finger to you. You don't need to die to avenge your horse. Dawkins had tears in his eyes. There are people here now who love you, as much as you loved your filly. Josh saw him. I know, brother. I love you too. Dawkins shook his head to scold. Don't be stupid enough to tie your life and Philly's loss to the fate of our entire realm. Josh lost a tear himself. Don't you see, Dawkins? They're already tied. No. Where our realm goes, I go. We've been riding toward this duel since the coin fell. Philly's role has been filled by an unbelievable band of brothers. But our battle for the West never ended. But it will end the instant they see you, said Utah Davis. I've been to Kansas myself, in my deepest disguises, and hardly survived. In what multiverse do they let the gunslinger of Allentown ride into the kingdom alone? They will have no choice, said Josh of Allentown. Why? Because we will have their prisoner. Sachem Reed's head shot up to Josh's eyes. Dawkins turned fast to read the body language in both of them. Prisoner? Will you tell them, Chief? Asked Josh. Sachem Reed took a deep breath and folded his hands. A smile came to his wry face. He started to laugh. Very good. Ah, yes. A sharp shooter. This has been quite a supper. But I want to hear it from you. Very well, began Josh, circling. Dawkins moved a hand to his holster. Utah Davis looked to his hunting rifle leaning on a thermal sculpture 10 steps away. Sachem Reed didn't move. 3 buffalo were slaughtered to send us a message. But we met the chiefs 4 times. If a Kansas skinner does anything, it ain't quitting early. Unless he be caught. And if I'm to believe the record ledgers below your statue in Town Hall, one of the greatest spies to ever live in the multiverse wouldn't be hunting for fish if said skinner ain't been caught. Sachem Reed shot a hand to his hip. Not a gun, a lever. Dawkins drew a weapon only in time to be blasted sideways by a shotgun geyser. Davis dove for his rifle. Josh was knocked to a knee. Reed smiled and pointed toward the canvas tent that the geyser had collapsed. There, before the bills, stood a 4th buffalo. One who had survived. And she now casually shook her mane and nuzzled her nose back into a hay pile. But that was nothing. Far more arresting was the near bare body tied onto her back. Like a sunbather made hostage, the poacher lay on his back in an X shape, with wrists tied to the buffalo's front hooves and ankles attached to her hind hooves. The brand of an arrowhead marked his chest.
Meet the stranger.
Josh sprung for the throat of the gagged mountain man. Davis caught him first. That's Trav'ler KC, shouted Josh. You know him? Asked Davis in the struggle. It was his gun! Josh fought back, hard. He broke away for the prisoner. Dawkins took out some emotion as he slammed Josh into a brittle mineral railing. Dawkins! It was his gun! Dawkins let out the rest of his rage. And we need him alive! If your stupid plan has any chance. Before dawn, the men readied the horses. Josh simply stared at Trav'ler KC. And stared. The nightmare was still alive, in front of him, captured. And he had to keep him alive as a bargaining chip. Their only immunity through Chief's kingdom. Passing the buffalo-tied poacher, Utah gave the bison a good scratch behind the horn. She nodded. Is he okay up there? Should be. Only thing would be if the buffalo decides to roll over. That would crush him. Answered Reed, holding a morning brew of Joe and bubbling thermal rocks. And he don't speak. Not Haudenosaunee or English, at least. He dressed as a Dutch trapper. To hide the brand. Dutch. Hey. What have you been feeding him? Asked Davis. Fish scales and dung, said the Sachem. Brutal. But so was slaughtering buffalo into waste. The men took a heavy gulp. I'm just kidding. Carrots. Nothing but carrots. Moments later, the first sunbeams lit the steam and thermals through the pines. The men twisted their horses. Dawkins, hear me, said the Sachem, and whispered close to his ear. You asked me a question earlier. The last time I took up arms with the blacksmith was 1849. As the men rode out of the redwoods and blue spruce of Pandemonium Geyser, Sachem Reed, chief of the Deer Clan, covered his heart. De bills. 3 buffalo bills and a Bill's buffalo followed their shadows west. The morning sun warmed every back, unless your back was tied to a bison, in which case the sun warmed your throat, thighs, and gut. The first day was hot, marked by random interrogations of KC. His stoic silence didn't impress them much, and the trio were shouting trail songs before passing under Greycliff. Trav'ler KC did get scratched up a bit in a loganberry thicket. What was to be done? So barflies practically blanketed his skin until a thunderstorm rolled through. At sunset, the crew watched a full herd of zubas graze and loped through the meadows as camp was made. By midday next, they entered the Grand Gorge. Descending through layers of Buffalo Nation history, all recorded in the fossil walls. In the lowest, prehistoric levels, they took lunch of jerky, wild loganberries from yesterday, and carrots. The campfire that night lit up the roaring emerald rapids of the Niagara. Dawkins cast shadow puppets onto the Pan-American rock layer and danced them around to his cowboy tunes. You believe the stories? That the Mohawk can ride side-slung at full gallop, shoot a man down? Asked Utah Davis to Josh. I seen it. Last winter? But that don't mean I want to talk about it. Utah tapped Josh's chin up, encouraging his friend. And maybe this Skinner will chirp for a treat. Davis grabbed the last of his trout and took the gag off Trav'ler KC's lips. Josh turned away. He'd rather watch shadows dance. Dawkins was making a pretty good impression of a puppy. Floppy ears and all. But even the pup whipped her head when they heard Utah Davis speak Dutch. Hungrig? Warlog? Lighter? Josh saw Trav'ler KC's eyes widen. Brother? Asked the prisoner. It went back and forth some until Davis reported back, letting KC eat some of the fish scraps off the bone. Me ma was a surveyor, worked the Holland Land Company. Claimed she laid plans for New Amsterdam, but I don't know. And why would you sit on this particular talent? Asked Dawkins, leaning some weight on his companion. To see if he talked in his sleep. Just you, unfortunately. He said it again. It's all he's saying. Afterlope in Wintersprecht. Last winter tells it? Utah guessed. Or last winter speaks? Every question went this way, with Casey's cavity-black smile widening each time. Has the Mohawk made duels before? What's with you? What's inside the arrow's head? Will the chiefs honor a warrior treaty? Wintersprecht, Wintersprecht, Wintersprecht! Casey laughed. Josh kicked a skull-sized rock into the waves. Ask him whatever you like. Last winter is over. Water over the falls. Josh turned to the most violent rapids in the multiverse. This stretch of the Grand Gorge. The campfire cast a shadow of Josh onto them. It seemed to animate the explosions of water. Shadow puppets. Davis began to whistle an old folk song from the Utah territory. It was both haunting and bouncy. Trav'ler KC bobbed his head in the firelight and soon mumbled words to the tune. Davis urgently asked for paper. What is all this? Asked Gardner Dawkins, pulling out a leather-bound parchment. Just a lullaby, but I never knew there were verses. Davis snatched the journal and scribbled frantically. Imaginary shadow puppets seemed to animate the nursery rhyme, like a youngling show on the rocks around them.
Ik zing en Hardcover, orders man such God. We grow in good and shield-fetted land, and singe result.
It started with an unreal village of silly silhouettes as the music sang. What's it mean? Hold on. Just hold on a sec. A shadow puppet explorer character trotted the imaginary hills around them and bopped his head into a cliff, falling on his rump like the cartoon he was. The cartoon cliff shadows bounced a little shadow boulder on his top hat until all that was left of the cliff was an official shield. Dawkins wiped his eyes from the make-believe shadows to see Davis and KC in real life. It's the story of War Chief Reed of the Arrowhead. Not our Sachem Reed, their Chief Elder Reid, an exiled marshal of the Smittens, explained Davis. Apparently it all came from here, like right here, in the Buffalo Nation. Who did? Their leader is Mafia? Asked Dawkins. No. Bigger. Much bigger. The entire smitten faith of the multiverse. Even Josh looked behind him from the dark waves. The whole religion started in the west of Old Fort York, ski trap country. Shadows animated behind Davis as he continued to translate. So, a failed entrepreneur called James Town found a shield buried in the big hills. Right behind his house, actually. It had stars and symbols and stripes. And Town determined that only his wife, Mafia folk like him, could read it. What? Dawkins complained. That coincidence? Only this guy's wife can read a new god language on tablets found in his own backyard? I just don't think you're that good at Dutch, brother. They call it the Book van Smeden. The Book of Smitten. Wait, the Smitten? I have heard of that. That's the lawmakers of the multiverse, said Josh, walking over. The imaginary shadow puppets on the wall transformed from eccentric Mafia folk into a chorus of robed priest shadows, as tall as the cliffs.
Nu fortälka ett raja, en age waits sin hand.
Jamestown's shadow puppet bounced around the hills, flailing his arms to shadow children, and then shadow crowds, and then a shadow congregation behind a shadow pulpit. And the shadows bowed in prayer.
Zo kennen we all mea he nu Greensland.
Jamestown spread the word of this religion to the old fort and proclaimed changes for the entire Niagara frontier with God-given authority and new laws. Some changes were accepted as good, others unaccepted. Dawkins gave Davis a furrowed brow. Like what? Like a man, a lick, can have multiple dames, but not the other way around. Oh, brother. I know a few clan mothers, including my own, who would drive a guy out for shade like that. Pun intended. Shadow puppets. The shadow puppets, like the narrative, did just that. Jamestown, his wife, his new cutthroat bodyguard, and the entire movement was cast out of the Buffalo Nation. In the wilderness, Mrs. Town declared her husband God's messenger, a prophet. Changed his name to God Tells. Raja God Tells. They settled briefly among many societies of the West. Brownfield Lake, the Wichita, Ringley Forest, the Skull People. Banished from all, but leaving influence. Lastly, of course, they came upon
Desert Sivan, Utah.
the Salt Sea of Utah. Dawkins said it. KC stopped, holding up his fish spine, picked clean. Josh tossed KC the rest of his fourth and last trout to keep the chief talking. He caught it between tied wrists. Fish didn't change the fact that he was tethered to a bison's horns. Shadow puppets divided into dozens of child missionaries. They sprung into weakening portals. Before the end of the era, missionaries, then churches, then priests had untouchable control in all the known realms. Refugees no more, but puppet masters. It is said Raja God Tells was contented, but his bodyguard turned marshal understood greater potential. With a word, he could summon a smitten army, and within a year, he could harness a super collapse. With untouchable laws and unstoppable might, they could grow the word by
Cry is stocked.
crusade. A holy war, Josh asked Davis. Yes, Raja Gatels warned Elder Reid that the missionary radicalization and warmongering had to stop. Reid was found only days later, arming insurgents. He was too dangerous, so the Raja assigned Reid on a mission to the farthest age from Utah as possible. Back east, to the academy. Philadelphia, said Dawkins. It is said he preached the whole way, and everyone on board in his cabin believed they were either smitten or one of his long-lost children by the time they got off. Oh yes, the smitten cabin, Dawkins said of the old cliché. Harbaugh, Bowles, Peterson, our own Brigadier Fraser. And there were more generals too. I never knew it was true. That's where Tomlin said McDermott served under him. At the academy, said Josh. At first, his grandiose plans and discipline were rewarded with promotions, all the way up to Secretary Eagle. But even the academy had limits of ambition. Not unlike Jamestown himself, Elder Reid was exiled west. The smitten wandered the prairies and the deserts as an outcast, building a manifesto in the wilderness again. He may have walked these very trails, until, one day, He fell down the winding gorge where the old gate was. He was the first man to walk the Snake Canyon for eras. The first modern man to see it open into the ancient triangle court and cliff dwellings. He must have been the size of a pebble under the massive, overgrown arrow's head. What a place to rebuild a kingdom. From the bones of a dominating lost civilization, stories traveled out like smitten missionaries that there was a homeland for fighters with the brands of exile. Any warlord banished for aggression or misunderstood skills were to pilgrimage to the head. He didn't want soldiers. He wanted chiefs. Shadow filled the canyon. Shadow puppets eclipsed the moons. How does it end? Asked Josh to Davis.
Het eindigde afgelopen winter. Casey laughed,
Polishing off the second fish spine. It ended last winter. Screeched the buffalo. She reared away from pain on her hind legs. Her gut bled, with a fish spine as sharp as a knife pointing out. Trav'ler KC was small below her as he plunged the second fish spine into her side. Neither could kill her, but it was enough panic to slip off the river ledge. Her hind feet splashed into a wave. Any other river, she steps out, gores the threat, and the trio negotiate in Chief's Kingdom with a bargaining chip. This was the Niagara. The equivalent of 350,000 horses ripped her away. KC gave a crooked smile, flexed his wrists and biceps into a brace for the instant after when the leather strap ripped him into the raging river. Gone. In the time it takes 3 cowboys to saddle their horses, a drowning bison was a day's ride downstream. I gave away our advantage, said Josh. Only if he survives. Maybe. He will survive. And long miles ahead of us with a message to kill. We must assume that, said Josh. It will be in the flesh that Trav'ler KC comes back to haunt us. Yeah, said Dawkins. The next morning, a hairy man and his dog snowshoed the lowest glacier of the Saber-Tooth Mountains. The emerald vista behind them was the prettiest the wilderness had to offer. So, it was here that the trapper had buried his brother. A fresh bandit flower was placed next to the one from yesterday, and the 59 days prior. Miss you, kid. The dog laid down. At the 4th trap, the mountain man with a rackskin cap shot at breakfast, but missed. He wasn't that hungry anyway. His dog moaned in annoyance. At the 13th trap, he caught a crow. And at the 17th trap, he caught a 1,200-pound buffalo by a leather strap attached to her horns. Upon closer inspection, they were sawed-off handcuffs with footprints. The 3 Bills trotted the warpath in silence. They had a survivalist fugitive to race 98 long miles to Arrowhead Rock. The winner got to ambush their sworn enemy. It was near midday before they stopped, and the first man spoke. Raiders. A week old, commented Dawkins as the buzzards scattered. Last week's attack. A small band of remains lay in the sun of the borderlands. The abandoned horses' mouths were open and uncanny. Based on the blasters and the 4-0 style robotics, they were from the radiation dead zone of Vegas, 2049. And these horses didn't make it out. This used to be our territory, said Dawkins. Keep moving, said Josh, and trotted into the enemy storyline. Some 2 miles ahead, Josh turned Ron Pinto's all the way back around. Hey, gunslinger. What's got you? Said Davis.
Don't wait for me.
Josh, said Dawkins.
Josh!
He shouted. The gunslinger cantered away into their own dust. Josh kicked up Red Rock, climbed up a dune slope, and caught again the blood-specked trail toward the scavengers. He lifted a raider vehicle and coughed out the smell of maggots. He looked at the horses. He looked at Philly. No, she's gone. Philly's gone. He looked at the raiders' stolen horses with their mouths open and uncanny. All of them.
Full speed!
Shouted Josh when he was in earshot of the companions on the trail. Full speed, he's saying. Let's go, run! Yeah! Josh and Ron's Pinto flew past the pair, who twisted and kicked up their horses to a gallop. Their thunder began to shake and finally roll. Davis closed the gap on his faster steed.
What? What is it?
Dawkins could hear too as he rode into the sound waves at full tilt.
Hey, gunslinger!
Josh looked back. His hair and poncho whipped.
Her teeth. Tomlin of the Steelers gave us the Chiefs' taunt. What the pigs scat.
Shouted Josh.
McDermott said they were diced. Bean said they were bones.
Josh remembered the way Sachem Reed had bounced the buffalo's teeth, like so many dice.
Don't you get it? The Chiefs dug up Philly's body and sent me her teeth.
Josh took the rifle off his shoulder. Brown eyes, dilated.
Last winter speaks.
What happened in Kansas was suddenly all around him. Expansive, gargantuan, night and winter. Arrowhead Rock. Josh was the boy maverick and dying. He'd been shot 3 times. Arrows deep inside his darkest hour. Ahead of him loomed the sphinx head of the ancient chief carved in stone. The arrowhead at the point of this triangular canyon pueblo. He looked left and right. All stone, all rubble, all battlefield. The boy maverick had been annihilating the fortifications for hours before the arrows from his own guerrilla batteries. He'd fire a shot, cripple a bunker, and ride Philly fast through the heavy fire to another hideout. And behind him, his last known location would be pulverized into gravel. Shot for shot. He'd strike a blow, they'd tidy up. One final adventure in your greatest enemy's capital. But now, with no defenses left, and Philly nowhere to be seen, Josh felt a long way from Brittany, and Mom, and Uncle Brian, and the Firebaugh Ferry. Exposed, on foot, arrows in his back and leg, alone. Was this the fairy tale he'd written desperate letters for? Was this better than waiting tables in the desert? His white shirt stained blood red, and his skin drained white. The gunslinger was a lone snowflake, dropped into a lake of blood. All that was left was to melt. To help him with that, war chiefs began to emerge from the shadows of rubble and snow. Guys, he's got red hair, Josh thought, looking at the red mustached, red uniformed, red-faced genius called Chief Elder Reid. Josh had seen a lot in the 4 years. Would red-haired generals with grandiose ideas about how Josh should live, and die be the bookends.
He's got 1 round left.
Cried Chief Elder Reid from horseback, as far away as the arrowhead.
Wezin's elf.
Said a bear-sized chief in Dutch. Trav'ler KC, in the flesh and clothes. 1 round. Josh asked from cracked lips, the best shot in the West. 1 for the half-breed warhawk? 1 for the chief elder who controls them all? 1 for the Dutchman pulling an axe from the executioner? Josh pointed the varmint rifle at whoever in the circle was closest, getting them to flinch or dive back. It bought time, but not medicine. It bought control, but not water, or an exit, or another cup of Loganberry tea with his mom. Chiefs behind him sprinted forward as soon as his back turned. He got hit again. Arrowhead punching in. Eyes seared fire. And fire brought pain. This was it. 1 last shot. For everything. And he sure as hell wasn't going to give up. The glare blinded his eyes. Brown eyes. Dilating. A tiny flash in the massive arrowhead rock. And this was no random twinkle. It was a signal from behind enemy lines. The boy Maverick threw up his gun barrel, tucked in the scope, and silently declared a miracle. I thought they got you, Spy Master. Like they did me. Not yet. The silver mirror glinted a signal to Josh for the 3rd time that night from the eye of the giant sphinx. The arrow's head was the most fortified keep of the cliffs. With the chief's militia at home, the catacombs at the canyon point were the most impenetrable armory of the multiverse. Unless some renegade guard, or rebel leader, or friendly ghost, or anthropomorphic animal on the inside planted 7-pound shells into load-bearing walls and flashed a direct signal to an invading force. I bet they tried to get you, Spy Master. Like they did me. Josh was delusional. But it was fun to imagine this rebel, guard, ghost, animal on a desperate adventure of cloaks and daggers, him or herself. All that was left was to never, ever give up. You son of a chief.
Charge!
Hostiles from every military age in red rags sprinted at Josh from every side. Arrows in his back shook, the 4th down in his leg, and 13 steps of death he couldn't run. The last remaining bullet to his name. 4 years fused into a final shot. Trust the mysterious Spy Master inside the enemy's skull. The cheek of the arrowhead exploded into an arrow cave. An 8-pound artillery shell had been primed inside. Primed and volley shot from the very throat of death. Chiefs dove for cover. Chiefs ran for their crumbling vault as a dignity tower leaned and its front wall caved in. Destroy everyone up there! Josh heard the Chief Elder command. Our own guardsmen, Chief Elder. All of them. This is the 3rd attack inside our own keep. And who ran out of the dust? A sumo wrestler made out of chicken wings. No, Josh had lost a lot of blood. What it was a stagecoach on fire. Caught in the collapse, no doubt. No driver, but one of the conscripted horses at the head was the happiest face he ever saw. Philly? You're alive! You're alive! You're alive! You're alive! She might have screamed the same if she were an anthropomorphic. Instead, she just broke free of her harness and galloped away from the doomed team toward him. Billy rode like thunder. The boy Maverick grabbed her dragging rein line as she passed and found himself climbing arm over arm up the galloping reins, not a second to be wasted, to make for the bottom of the triangle, the canyon gate. The only way home. We're good, we're good, we're good! Shouted the boy with arrows protruding and mine screaming. Yeah, let's go, girl! The final shot was over. We sleep in the fairy bed tonight. Let's go home. Her pace and rhythm was different, but Josh remembered it. It came from joy. It was the same gallop she had run through the downpour that ended the great drought, when the multiverse seemed to smile on them for once. When a cursed history had turned upside down. And now Josh had become the no-name farmer. Until she tripped. It was so sudden. 5 feet, 3 inches is the confirmed distance between heaven and hell. Josh felt every centimeter as he smashed into it and rolled. Arrows snapped. It was half as bad as Philly. Like a stunt horse, she screamed and scraped on rock. Her harness sparked in the dark. They hadn't ridden a minute before the bolas of Trav'ler KC had strangled their hooves. Another rider, hot on their trail, shook the narrow canyon that led to the gate. The cheetah headdress, Aztec elite, raced past on the fastest thoroughbred he'd ever seen. Spaz. If Josh had but one bullet left, but the final shot was over. Cheetah closed the gate. The entire population of the kingdom chanted from their cliff dwellings in the walls of the sunken mesa. They wanted blood. They wanted their knights to march again into a super collapse, where only Mafia folk could dream. The boy didn't know anything about the cosmos, the Book of Smitten, or Weakenings at the time, just that he had no ammunition left and was in the beating heart of hostile territory. He couldn't hear himself think. All that was left was to melt. The first war chief to slide around the corner of the canyon toward the defenseless boy and his tied horse was a knight, a full body of red armor and a sword. Josh scrambled to Philly to protect her. Circle the wagons, he whispered. As the sword careened down, the rifle swung up. Another last stand, this one from a bent knee. They fought over her kicking hooves and whinnies. They fought. Uncle Brian had once boasted Josh as a master of French swordplay, but he'd always used more sabers than rifles in tournaments. Josh parried a blow and threw a right hook into the helmet. It dented the nose plate, but left Josh's ribs exposed to the sword. But the knight pulled a punch.
Listen, no time.
It said. Josh punched his neck.
Friend, stop!
Then bullets burst into Josh's eyes. Not from a gun, not shot, but a handful of ammunition from this medieval red armor. What?
I'm not a thief.
Yelled the dented helmet with an arrowhead. More bullets flew from his sash, and a silver mirror shimmered.
I'm not one of Reed.
Spymaster? Josh shouted in joy. The Spymaster from inside of the arrowhead! The chief traitor! Josh moved in to hug the unknown ally and got punched in the jaw.
Ow! Sorry, but keep fighting. Lookouts watch us from everywhere.
Josh understood and hit him in the chest. Thank you! You saved my life!
Not yet.
Chokehold.
We need a way out.
Josh flipped the knight over his back. We need a way in. The gate can only be opened from inside the arrowhead. Or whatever's left of it.
I just escaped it. Stranger, everyone there is fleeing or dying,
said the spy. Got it. Great idea. Josh kicked him back a few steps.
What idea?
I shoot you.
No!
Destroy him! Destroy him!
Cried Chief Elder Reid to his legion of Zoom. His mustache blew as the riders and runners flew past. Then arrows. The front line closed in as the Red Knight's body dragged away toward the triage station. Every eye saw Josh's shot hitting the motionless knight. On the frontier, and the rest of the multiverse, a special rage is reserved for an enemy who shoots to kill, rather than disarm an opponent. The boy Maverick crossed a line that you don't come back from. He deserved any consequence. It was a risk he had to take. The first Macaweedle club swung in, and the next 3 obsidian blades lethal. Josh cut Philly free, and she roared at the enemy Appaloosas and cheetah-bred Mustang. As of now, there was no way out of this mesa pit with locked gates, only through. She charged at their front line, a maw of spears, and broke past. Philly cantered forward with driving hooves until once again they saw the colossal arrowhead at the end of the courtyard, the point. Only a minute prior they'd evacuated on this very path, and now somehow returned with full force again. War chiefs pursued, undefended. It would be a tight window. Philly's mane whipped behind bent ears. Josh raised his scope at full gallop. It covered the 17 tattoo. 17 years had come down to 17 seconds. Josh needed a traitor, a spy master, a friendly ghost on the inside. A ghost who had been shot with enough velocity to break a chest plate and to draw blood, but not injure his ally. A ghost who could spin off the hospital cot inside the head, shift disguises, and overcome whatever complex drama of strength and wit and deception was required to maneuver the vaulted catacombs yet again. To have done everything perfect and offer him a target. A flash of light. A spy inside. In the end, at the end, Josh fired a bullet. It flew. A 4th shell of the night detonated inside the arrowhead vault. The remaining side of the Sphinx head blew open with a concussion. The gate control room. The impossible shots. 4 critical strikes embedded within enemy lines. Never before had it happened in the multiverse. Not by Sachem Reed, nor any other legend. Just a masked stranger. Chief Elder Reid looked on in red horror. Trav'ler KC fell to his knees. The cheetah shielded his face from debris. Screamed the boy Maverick, galloping around on Philly through the dust. She leapt between strides and whinnied. Without her, nothing moved. Josh spotted the Red Knight, riding out from the smoke on a mount of his own. They galloped astride toward the toppled gate, wide open with a clear path. The warriors reached for one another to celebrate, grabbed forearms strong, and praised the heavens. 2 strangers who did it, who broke down the kingdom. The masked man cried. Yippee-ki-yay, shouted the boy Maverick. The horses jumped in stride and brayed. We don't know one another, stranger, but you just made a nation of forgotten people believe that their world matters. I'm in your debt.
Are you kidding me? No! The debt is mine. It is me who got to feel that I matter. A shot in the heart.
Join me in the buffaloed. A cannon fired and echoed in the canyon. A call to the warpath. All eyes of the kingdom turned to the dusty rubble beneath the arrowhead. And brown eyes, too, dilated in the dust. A man of lean muscle, tomahawk, and a mohawk loaded his 6-shooter. The half academy, half war chief loaded a revolver with a twist. He walked out of the defiled ruins of his ancestors. Montana, Lenny the Cold. He was the Mohawk. He had 2 loaded 6-shooters and a bullet around his neck. 13. Nightmares don't always follow much logic. There was the Mohawk, far, far behind them. And the open gate. So close. Josh was beyond the scope of a sniper and galloping farther toward a super collapse. The Red Knight was gone. Josh didn't cheer, laugh, or kick his heels up and shout. He just rode. Steady. Steady. Thunder. Breath. Shots came from behind. Breathe. Breath. And 10 more breaths, he'd be clear of the gate, and the archway, and the mesa pit. Josh glanced back. The Mohawk had fired a cannon backward into the ground. The effect was not to send a cannonball in Josh's vague direction, but the unhinged cannon itself. Bree. And it was well short, and not exactly a projectile. Then why is Bunker racing toward me in the open exit? Bunker was a World War I chief of the peace, a master engineer among the best in history. Of course, he hailed from the Multiverse's Great Trench War, in the age of artillery. The chief rode a 1917 Indian motorcycle. Josh breathed thick and coughed. Over halfway there, maybe only 6 more steady breaths. Josh ducked. That was louder. The Mohawk, with Trav'ler KC, fired the cannon again into the rock to launch the destroyed weapon through the air. Wild, wingless, but fast. It flipped end over end to crash into the distant cliff like a pipe thrown at a backstop. It crushed Bunker's motorcycle into 10,000 scraps where it landed. Josh began to hyperventilate, seeing a 3-ton cannon suddenly across the mesa and targeting him. Run! But Bunker didn't need to hit him. Just the canyon arches and ledges over the open gate to seal the tomb. Philly's breath foamed like snowflakes. Josh inhaled a final breath.
Fire!
Cried Bunker. All that was left was to... Josh saw freedom and a rock slide at the same time. But the rock slide was closer. He pulled Philly's reins. She jerked them out of his hands with her own bit and bridle. Fearlessness, unrelenting grit, strong heart. She smashed into the crumbling debris with her head and shoulder as if to break right through the canyon. Only real life were like the dime novels. Always a happy ending. Josh had no choice but to flip over her head. His back, filled with obsidian arrowheads, stopped by solid rock. His brown eyes dimmed in the dusk. 2 unequaled nations with nothing left. Dead. Equal. A smitten priest put a hand on Josh's bloody shoulder as he woke up. A collapsed gate swallowed him as Philly dug at the rocks. He was like an angel. His robes were exceedingly white, with 3 black stoles making stripes. He was clean. It seemed the boy Maverick hadn't seen someone so clean in months of the 4 years, which had all culminated here, at the end, in the end. The chiefs fly a white flag. A truce has been called. What does that mean? Neither side has able defenses. Yet, there is no escape. By the governance of the untouchable laws and the prophet Raja Gatels, a proxy warrior from either side engages in the shootout. A shootout? I'm the only warrior on my side, so it would be me. What is it? Very well. This is a coin of equal sides, forged by the Council of Smiths in accordance with the Book of Smith. The dead man's coin. Josh mumbled. He'd heard of it, but never. What do I do in a shootout?
Call it.
Wait, first, what do I do in a shootout? Is it like a cowboy duel or champion warfare?
Call it.
Hey, man, wait, I'm all alone here.
Call it.
The dead man coin spun in the air. The tails.
Tails is the call Lord High.
Lord, blessed the fate. The dead man's coin landed flat, without bouncing. Heads. The boy Maverick pulled himself onto Philly, who brayed. They were a ragged pair at the end, but never gave up. Like a BB gun, Josh drew his varmint rifle, still full of rounds. "I'll take that," said the smitten priest. He pulled Josh's gun out of his hands. "My gun? It's a shootout." "Yes. And you lost the coin toss." "So what? We both shoot." The priest laughed. He laughed again. Good and hard. He laughed a third time. "No, you lost the coin toss. The Mohawk shoots at you undefended. Then, if you survive, you have a chance to shoot at him undefended." There was no train whistle, just sweat streaking off bloody skin. Philly, riding like thunder. The tomahawk chop boomed off every rock and chanted from every throat. It shook gravel. Josh saw black flurries, and ahead was the Mohawk's improvised gun battery, inside the ruins of a massive stone eye. The barrel of a gun flashed from its pupil, dilated. The sound came later. The untouchable war code, like any honorable fighter, prohibits murder based on the ancient understanding that only cowards and the unskilled must resort to killing strokes. So what was the target of a shootout? Every defense of Josh's had already been destroyed. Philly galloped faster, lowering her head. You can't kill a man. Her veins, rivers of blood. Her sweat, radiating heat. Her mane, a tide of hair with braided feathers of blue, white, red. As red as Josh's face. As white as his hat. As blue as the Brittany well near the ferry, under an apple tree. If they could survive this, an unprecedented freedom of legend. What? How many times can... Philly galloped on. Philly somehow got even lower, more streamlined, flying like a wild bird into a wind of bullets. The Mohawk ran out of bullets. They were safe. Philly ran the final 9 strides to clear the gun battery. Josh breathed. The boy Maverick was close enough to casually see inside the fallen eye. A mountain man. The Trav'ler KC handed over a second rifle, his own, loaded full. The Mohawk held it to his cheek. "No!" Screamed Josh, seeing the pupil of his eye dilating. "No!" The one word spoke in the hearts of an entire nation who had never mattered. Like a charging buffalo, she galloped on. Much of her fearless blood remained still in the winter air. Brown eyes dilated. Phillies. Die, late, dead. Josh didn't even notice the bullet in the lifetime of memories.
Red.
Josh's bruised and cut open face glistened red with blood, His and Philly's and theirs.
Black.
Josh fell unconscious into red rock and snow. More red, orange red, like rock he had heard from some black dreamscape that had happened to someone else, like some fragment he had read somewhere in time. Josh jolted awake with a yell and lost sight again. He was 4 years older now, and dying. He vomited blood, only his, and held the hot wound in his stomach. He was rolled in bison fur and dragged away from Philly. Why didn't she?
Blackness.
He woke again to freezing water being poured into his mouth. He thrashed his head so that he could keep fighting. Let me at them! It's over. No! We're not done! It's over, Maverick. They're gone. Rage. Gone? Who's gone? I'm right here. Where is she?
Blackness.
The Canyon City. The Red Rock Fortress. The Arrowhead. The Pinto shined as wet as a river. He walked through the seafloor remains of a prehistoric water system. A dried triangle lake. Josh stood out like a snowflake in a red rock cage. Without his hostage, he was vulnerable to anything, everything. The gunslinger's only protection would be the storyline, the invisible ideas that surrounded him, the Bill's Mafia, and the strength of the consequences. This was their first test. Wichita locals recognized him and dropped their bundles. Shadows rushed inside their carved windows and through the catacomb halls to other dwellings. Whispers of warning screeched in tunnels and caves. Animals and children were ripped off the street like Josh were a rabid wolf. Or a ghost. Walking. To them, maybe I am. Stories did this. The kingdom had never been this afraid in their own home during their golden age. This glorious time that included multiple super collapses and all the multiverse's dignity centered on them. Those opulent occurrences allowed these Wichita and Ka to sculpt numerous towers into stunning, intricate temples. Josh was miniature by comparison. But even the dwellings cut into the cliffs on either side of Josh were small when compared to the vanishing point to which everything led. The Arrow's Head. Like a sphinx, the ancient war chief statue radiated now, totally rebuilt since last winter's battle. Its new cheeks were golden blocks in the red rock. Kintsugi on a colossal scale. Josh rode with no shadow through the center of the courtyard and lifted his arms out wide to quiet fears of a trick. His rifle was clearly tied into his bedroll behind him. Peacemaker, he said to a woman. She wore braces on her arms and shook in fear. She had been too slow to cross the road when screams came ahead that Josh of Allentown rode into Arrowhead Rock. I will not hurt you. Is Mahawk still your most valued warhawk?
Yay, Trav'ler,
she said, alone in the street.
Here, we call him
The gunslinger. And they say we're equals, thought Josh. Very well, he said. Will you tell the gunslinger of Arrowhead Rock that Josh of Allen... War cries echoed behind Josh, and a galloping thunder echoed through the canyons. He encircled him, the Warhawk, in full dress. Josh didn't turn his head to the posturing spirals. He feigned boredom and streaked some sweat off Ron's pinto. But that didn't stop Josh from noticing his enemy rode with a tomahawk and his 2 loaded sidearms, plus a bullet around his neck. His mohawk hair was cropped high to expose the 2 arrowhead brands on the flesh of his temples. The mohawk reared in front of Josh of Allentown. Josh summoned his pinto to rear. What a sight for the Colossus to witness. 2 nations of equal dignity. 2 armies of equal might. 2 gunslingers. 2 stories. Hey, Mohawk of the War Chiefs. Oashe. I see you. The Mohawk smiled, bending war paint.
You are seen, boy Maverick, by every eye of the great Chief Kingdom, man.
A corresponding eruption of noise clamored from the cliffs, tomahawks chopping rock. The Mohawk looked at him slyly.
So, a new horse. All his teeth, I hope.
Sajak!
Josh shouted and circled the Mohawk, but spoke out to the cliffs. Some might hear him.
Our nations have crushed the blood from our hearts as none other in the multiverse. We push our entire age to the cliff of total war, mid-year. We are equal. Yet Newa, it is I who stand in your arrow again, unafraid.
Josh took a breath to relax the veins in his neck.
Mohawk, let us engage in single combat as proxy for our nations, to protect their blood and wager only our own.
Josh leaned in and bared his teeth, solid and white, like fillies.
And settle this.
The Mohawk kicked his horse and took a tight circuit or 2 around his brazen visitor.
But boy, we are not equal. How can 2 engage in champion warfare when only one is champion, man?
Hear me.
Thus, we each lost 1 battle of 5. We equal the ages in Dignity Hall. Our last meeting was cut by the coin of the dead man.
Josh spoke it loud so none could question his arguments, least of which the officiant priest who emerged in his robes from a smitten shrine. You, whispered Josh, recognizing him from last winter.
Meh.
It would require him to officiate a champion duel neutrally and represent the smitten.
Equal say you yet as I look to the eyes of my vault.
The Mohawk turned and pointed his tomahawk for all to see.
It is my counterspy, Juju, who recovers 7 score from your secret agent, man.
Gardner Dawkins was led out, bound by Juju, the exiled Steeler-converted chief. Josh had to bite his tongue when he noticed his oversized best friend had squeezed into an undersized red uniform and split every seam. Then there was his newly stolen helmet with an obnoxious red ostrich feather. Josh cracked. Just the way Dawkins inadvertently tickled Juju's face with it as he looked left and right and left, and Josh straightened up.
Caught him snooping around the brisket,
reported Juju, angry. Alias Snowman, sir.
Showman.
Snowman, Snowman, shouted Josh.
The brisket?
I hope you're super sorry. Dawkins kicked at the ground and tore more fabric. You already know. The Mohawk smiled. He enjoyed seeing a Bill's plan foiled, but even more so loved to watch an enemy grovel.
With this stunt,
the war chiefs have the farmers edged by 4, said Juju. Meanwhile, a flash of light glared into Josh's eyes. It came from the eyes of the Arrowhead, the impenetrable vault armory. I was hoping you'd say that. Josh flipped up his rifle in a flash of his own and fired an extraordinary volley shot into the eye of the Arrowhead Rock, a half a mile away. Silence. Utah Davis was the spy inside, the legendary Red Knight of last winter, the stranger who humbly made his way to the Buffalo Nation. A cannon blast of red dust and gold dignity bricks exploded out of that impenetrable vault where a real agent, not a snowman decoy, had infiltrated in all of the distractions. Just like old times, thought Josh. The Mohawk covered his head, but barked orders before the debris even stopped raining down. Chief Elder Reid stepped out of a shadow with a glare of his own at his Mohawk. So, our dignity was down by 4. Then we stole 7 right in front of you. So, to be equal, Josh leaned over and picked up a bundle of 3 dignity bricks. A bit bruised. He tossed it to the Mohawk. How's this for equal? The Mohawk rode off to his half-day barracks, screaming.
What are you feeling? We do 'em, man.
Utah Davis spied the Arrowhead's trap door as the first chief guard investigated the recent explosion.
Strand. Ik ben dood. Net als afgelopen winter.
The Dutch chief whispered to himself. He was about the same size. Still shot. Davis knocked him out. Moments later, Utah placed the last of the guard's uniform, his red cap, on his own noggin and walked quickly toward the catacombs within the head. Glancing down at the courtyard, he saw the grand pageantry of the chariot duel. The men were outfitted with blue or red war chariots, Appaloosa stallions, and Ron's Pinto harnessed. With a casual crack from the priest, they were off on the grand triangular track. Hang with him, gunslinger. Suddenly, a pair of reinforcements in the same red uniforms as Davis, now, jogged around the catacomb.
Report, guardsman.
Davis kept walking, lowered his cap, and said, Niets te zien.
I can't speak in Hollander. Which way?
They yelled slowly and loudly like fools. So Davis offered them all the details, as he was a member of the Chief Guard now.
Wenken blenken en nood, open vod, zeld weg in en schoen. Zeld open river veld vestig ven licht van ventouw.
They pushed past him flustered.
Garbils,
Davis added. He twisted forward fast and picked up the pace until he stopped dead in his tracks. Dode in his tracks. He'd bounced into the red cavalry jacket of a plump belly of a man with an extraordinary red mustache. Chief Elder Reid, Utah said. Davis, incognito, was surrounded by dozens of red knights of the Chief Guard, armor that Davis remembered well from last winter. There was no going around them, but Davis felt weak for another reason.
Sprach snel.
Speak quickly. The chief must have heard some of the last exchange.
The spy's own bum knocked him out cold,
said Davis in Dutch.
Is that true? Or are you the traitor?
Demanded Juju, still one of the best in the business. There was a pregnant pause where Davis could find no words, just looked into the eyes of Chief Elder Reid. So large, standing so close to him after so much recon and study.
You are here for a purpose,
Chief Elder Reid said, strangely. Purpose. More shots fired from the champion chariot duel below. Right, that was happening concurrently. Gunslingers shot out targets each lap between violent positioning.
We got a KO body here in Mafia rags,
yelled back the pair of red knights who'd passed, the fools who didn't speak Dutch. Anyone can change their clothes. It's the oldest trick in the book, leaned in Juju. You reek of bison. Davis felt his breath leave him. Was there actually a spy book?
My kindred, what is your purpose?
Asked the chief elder. Yes, agreed Davis, realizing his hand actually held a knife inside his pocket.
What is it?
The knife, thought Davis. How does he know?
Your purpose.
2 shots came again from outside, and Davis was all back, out of his shock. "To inspect the archive room, Chief Elder," said Davis in English. "The library?" asked Juju. "Yes. All of the attention is paid to the Dignity Vault and Armory. But on a frontier with no walls or trenches, it is our information, our stories, our secrets that protect us. If I were a spy, that would be the first place I would target, and it's our least defended."
Go,
commanded Chief Elder Reid.
get to the archive, son.
Utah slipped past the general and through the catacomb stairs he'd learned so well from last winter. The last thing he heard before slamming the door in the archives was the general screaming.
Bring me that traitor!
Josh's wooden wheels skidded in the bend. The floorboard leapt over every stone and pothole with no give. The Mohawk chariot slammed into him. Instead of bouncing off, Josh gripped the edge and drove them both toward the hundreds of merchants, athletes, and war chiefs screaming at the track edge. 10 times that number chanted the chop from the cliffside balconies in the sun. The loudest battlefield in all the multiverse.
Last to lap. Last to shot.
Called the smitten priest. Josh looked at his targets and the Mohawks. Down 3. Okay, Josh struck the reins to ram into the chief chariot. Rocks and sparks flew. A rut broke them apart and shook the integrity of the chariots. Josh led the way through the target stretch. Presumably, it should be 1 clay target per bullet. But if he needed to get 3 in 1, he'd just have to push the angle steeper. As steep as possible. He pulled away farther, in the clear, and lowered the bouncing rifle, softening his knees to steady. The overhead targets lined up as he passed them around the final corner. A shot for it all. But his right wheel disintegrated into sawdust. The chariot fell to one leg for an instant before ripping apart beneath his feet. The horses ran on, dragging fragments at full tilt as Josh rolled and scraped. Before he even stopped, he bounced to his feet into the officiant's face. "A lance, you saw it! A lance right in front of your face, you saw it! They threw a lance into the wheel!"
Out of chariot. Disqualified.
Announced the priest. Wichita locals screamed in joy, deafening. But louder were the war chiefs on the edge of the track with painted red lances. Josh scooped up red splinters from the wheel shards. My wheel was unpainted. Look at the other one. This is a red lance. Dawkins had been running, shouting, finally close enough. "Count them, High Priest. The chief with 95 coups is without his lance." Josh looked closer. It was true, and that giant danced the biggest. 95 coups. That's the one to be careful of, was all the priest said. "What?" asked Josh. "What kind of religion is this?" demanded Dawkins. "Untouchable," said the priest, trying to brush flecks of Josh's blood from his white robe. Josh wiped the length of his bleeding arm onto the smitten priest. "This is yours, then." All the Mohawk had to do now was finish the final lap. Not even fire a weapon, but ride 2 of the best painted horses in the multiverse around the rest of a triangle. A victory lap. The crowd let him know it. Just avoid some red splinters, perhaps. Josh felt sick. It started to hit him what this actually meant. What he'd forced his friends, his nation into with no comprehension that it could fail. I thought I was better. I thought I just needed a fair fight. How much dignity was he giving away? How would the storyline erode? Is Sachem Reed safe? The Mafia folk, McDermott? Even Baron Tomlin preferred to live under the way of the Mafia. There is no super collapse if I can't overcome the chiefs. Josh vomited. On his hands and knees, he vomited again. He was no savior. What would Diggs say? Unable to overcome. Maybe alone, said a voice. A new, chipper voice. Unable to overcome them alone? Diggs? Diggs! Shouted Josh to the super spy rappelling in from his Zubaz airship. Blue, white, and red banners of the Mafia framed him. Horns bellowed from the sky.
Let's go, Buffalo!
cried 4-0 in his robotic voice. The machine-enhanced Marine landed in full stride and charged at the Mohawk's chariot. 95 Coups tried to block him, but without his lance, was slammed into the ground seconds before 4-0 obliterated the Mohawk and chariot well before the finish line. What was left of the decorative chariot was suddenly annihilated for good measure by explosives. Josh looked up. Boom Boom Milano gave him a wave from the homemade Zeppelin. Hawkeye Johnson, Bear Morse, Doc Edmonds, and Big Iron Bass all swung down on lines into the Arrowhead courtyard and battled incoming war chiefs. The USS Goodyear for Mafia folks landed behind the line, and Mackenzie Slim, Motor, Cookie, and JLB Poyer Esquire hopped off the side to find targets.
Is this everybody?
Should be. What be the status? Asked Lieutenant General McDermott, striding forward with his sidearm drawn. He gave another hand to the gunslinger being pulled to his feet by Hollywood Diggs. And go, Bells. Josh? Go, Bills, sir. It's, well, it was a single combat duel between myself and the Mohawk in order to prevent a total war mid-season. McDermott took a quick glance at the chaotic battlefield of war mid-season behind them. Okay. What else?
This is a total war, Lieutenant General. You've brought the demons of Afterlope and Winter on yourself,
said the smitten priest, spitting with rage. Permission to approach, Your Honor, asked JBL Poyer, Esquire, in full posture in an even cleaner business suit.
Get out of here. You wanted a bloodbath. That is on you,
yelled the priest with blood on him. I think I heard him say yes, said Dawkins. Yes, please, in fact. So, please, you'd better go right ahead. Thank you, Mr. Dawkins. Actually, the Snowman, said Dawkins. What? We'll talk about it later, but, it's my new nickname. I can, but will not refer to you as such, Mr. Dawkins. JBL Poyer, Esquire, turned slightly, but precisely to the officiant. Your untouchable grace, the honor is mine to address the smitten church through your earthly body. Any action you currently see before you, including the Mohawk's sudden surrender to 4-0 with his war chariot on fire, is mitigated carefully to only equalize but not exceed the actions witnessed and documented above and beyond the agreed-upon scope of unmolested single combat between Josh of Allentown and said Mohawk of the War Chiefs. Chiefly, I refer to the known actions of 95 Coup, a lanceman without his lance, and the angle of blood splatter on your very own robes, thus rendering the remainder of all of this, well, colloquially, as extraneous, unrelated, isolated instances of wartime fraternization that does not nor should not impact the proceedings of said single combat for the remainder of the tournament. Any questions? Not if you're answering them, grumbled the smitten priest.
Hear me. The chariot race is hung. We are ending this battale now.
Both gunslingers raced the warpath. Each started in opposite corners of the arrow-shaped triangle, both at the bottom, and racing to be the first to Arrowhead Rock. There's a catch, Brigadier Dorsey had explained to Josh seconds before. In the center of the triangle is a single gun with a single bullet. The fastest route to the arrowhead is straight up the edge, but the most cutthroat route is through the middle. Josh of Allentown and the Mohawk sprinted straight, watching for the other to break in toward the center. There were two ways that this story could race to the end. One way to guarantee victory. One way to avenge your feelings.
Stop!
Screamed Davis from the Arrowhead archive in front of them. Behind enemy lines, still in disguise, he saw the enraged body of a man who shouldn't be in the courtyard. A ghost that would haunt them in the flesh. Trav'ler KC crawled like a rabid wolf down the cliff. The bloody, muddy monster dropped into the warpath in front of Josh and drew a Bowie knife.
Air, boo.
KC said.
Josh, look out!
Davis blew his cover. He needed to. Juju sprinted to the arrowhead. Inside the catacombs, Davis ripped out the pages from the archive library he'd spent 2 years trying to steal. With no time to read the parchments, he jammed them in his red shirt and threw up his hands just in time to pretend he was doing something else. With precious papers in his pocket, he was apprehended by Juju and the pair of fools. Davis started to talk fast and authoritatively in Dutch. They were just nursery rhymes his mom had taught him. And he may have had a chance until 95 Coup pushed through a bookshelf and lifted Davis over his head by the throat. Much harder to sprechen Dutch. You know your problem, Davis? Asked Juju in the baiting spy versus spy banter. Davis rolled his eyes and squeaked,
What, Juju?
You talk too much. Utah Davis was thrown into the opposite bookshelf, and the entire R section seemed to fall on him. You know, I wish I had something so witty to... Before finishing, he noticed an Academy archive had fallen open. A Darrow-type photo depicted Reed, younger, in formal Academy greens with another redhead. Text pasted below with glue read, Secretary Eagle Reed banishes Colonel McDermott from service. That backstabber, whispered Utah. Lieutenant General McDermott of the Buffalo Bills stared at Chief Elder Reid's flicks of attention. Micro-expressions. Where did they go? In what pattern? It said everything he was thinking. He knew how his mind worked. From Josh, to the center gun, to Trav'ler KC, to the center gun, to McDermott, to the arrowhead, to the center gun, to Trav'ler KC, to the Mohawk, to the center gun. Loud and clear, drill sergeant. McDermott grabbed Hawkeye by the arm. Johnson, don't let that center rifle out of your sight until the bullet is removed from it. No matter what happens.
Come on, boy.
Yelled Trav'ler KC directly at Josh's path against the cliff. All the more reason to break to the center gun. Josh simply replayed the last memory he had charging directly at Trav'ler KC. The memory of last winter, when his horse took a last stand. A horse he didn't have anymore. Me first, shouted Dawkins, putting the guard and Gardner and blindsiding Trav'ler KC to the ground. KC leapt up and got a powerful swipe that Dawkins dodged. But not the second. A cut. It could get brutal. Dawkins was a dancer, a record keeper, and a damn good gardener, but not a survivalist. They exchanged again, and Dawkins was sliced open.
Dawkins! Stop! Stop!
Cried Josh, rushing forward faster than he'd ever run on foot before.
You're outmatched! Outmatched!
Dawkins shouted, but re-upped his fists.
No! No!
A bull versus a cougar.
I love you.
Josh remembered.
I'd give my last finger for you.
I'm not gonna lose more family. But the knife stabbed to the hilt in Dawkins' back. He shouted, stunned, and backed away. Step by step, he staggered in pain. Josh was steps away. I did it, said Dawkins.
Que stoke?
Smiled KC. Got stabbed. The gardener smiled at the predator. Out of arm's reach. I got your knife, brother.
Who do you think you are?
Growled Trav'ler KC in English.
You already know.
Shouted the snowman and punched KC 4 times and kicked him in the chest. Wait, I've been here before. Utah Davis looked up in the library and spotted the trapdoor that had given him cover after the first bombing of the day, one that had come in even more handy in the after-open winter. Davis grabbed the next book from the shelf. Catch Me If You Can, a Sachem's Guide. A book. There was actually a spy book. Davis, a spy, threw it straight up to trip the trap, and like a dance, it dropped onto the heavy without his lance. Clockwork. Juju glanced away just long enough that Utah could grab the next volume, Pandemonium, and Other Musical Geysers, into his throwing hand. Hey, Juju, why don't you read something? Juju collapsed as the book broke his nose. Collapse. 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 Dawkins collapsed as he backed the Bowie knife in his back away from the dangerous hands of Trav'ler KC. He was disarmed, but still free and wild. Josh of Allentown bore down like a stampede at the furious KC. KC lowered his frame to break Josh's ribs. This was his home, his refuge, his body, and Josh was the charging filly. Not stopping. KC leapt for him. The gunslinger leapt clear over him. As they both flew, KC tilted his head up to watch Josh sail over. Josh planted a boot in his face. The Buffalo Bills celebrated from everywhere, wherever they were. Josh looked to his left. The Mohawk was still ahead of him by 3 paces, with less than 2 minutes to the arrowhead, so Josh broke to center. It was his only choice. The Mohawk broke to center too, to the center gun. But Josh was 3 paces closer to that center gun now. 3 paces he could cock and fire it and end the story forever. But the Josh of Allentown kicked the center rifle as hard as he could behind him. As far behind him as possible. Only cowards and the unskilled shoot to kill. The Mohawk overran center coming back, and Josh avoided a collision. He had the jump. Nobility had given him the jump. Goodness. Dignity. Josh ran his heart out toward the Arrowhead Rock. 50 yards. Through the Tomahawk chance. 30 yards.
7-step lead!
Shouted Davis from the head, well in earshot. Never, ever give up.
He's got the rifle!
Shouted Dawkins from the center, barely in earshot. Josh looked, but well within gunshot. Not the Mohawk, but Trav'ler KC lifted the center rifle with 1 bullet from the edge. In KC's hands, it sure looked like the same piece that had taken Philly, the same one that would take him and rewrite the story that controlled the multiverse. But Kansas Skinner does anything. It ain't quitting early. KC cocked the rifle and brought it to his bloodshot eyes, dilating. Josh looked down the barrel, a black eye of its own. KC pulled the trigger. A mountain man dropped onto the gun. The Buffalo Bills had a trapper of their own. Who is that? Of all people.
It's Bowie Knox.
250 pounds of cougar muscle, pounced off the canyon ledge and punched at his equal. 2 trappers finishing off a live catch. Blow for blow. It was a gladiator battle. Strength, battered toughness, true grit. Knox uppercut KC into a daze and tightened a bicep around his neck. First chicken I caught all year. Knox drove KC to the rock. Josh crossed the finish line. 7 steps or more. He had won. The Bills had won. Chief Elder Reid rode over to Lieutenant General McDermott and looked down from his high horse. Good one, said Reid. A blur of white flew past. Doc Edmonds helped Dawkins to his feet as the same white blur flew past like a glitch. Pressure on the wound, kid. Dawkins just repeated. Good one. What? Asked Doc. There's 1 bullet left.
Yeah, man, I've done more with less, man.
Screamed the Mohawk, aiming the rifle.
No, it's not over until I say it.
It's over!
A white blur, like a glitch, caught the rifle barrel and smashed the stock into the rocks. The gun that killed Philly. Smash. 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 Smash.
It's like, who the hell are you, man?
Screamed the Mohawk with nothing left. We're the Buffalo Bills, said Hawkeye Johnson.
A story as heavy as a mountain, flew as fast as the wind. A story that this year, the borderlands were buffalo country.